Okay, great. Good morning, everybody. We are live. Oh, hey, Steve. Steve Keller's with us here on Zoom. Okay, so first of all, big mazel tov to one of our very own from our shir, the John and Rob and Eisman getting honored the other night. What happens when you come to the shir? You know, I have some sway, so I can see if we can get the. Maybe next year we'll work on the farm. Okay.
I've been working on the farmers for years.
Ain't gonna happen.
All right. Okay. So we were in the middle of Reish Nun Beis Sif Daled. Reish Nun Beis Sif Daled. And what's going on here is the Shulchan Aruch had talked about you've given some sort of item to a non-Jew to do the work, and they do the work on Shabbos. So the example could be like you have a dry cleaner or something like that. Morning. So what do you do in terms of what do you do in terms of that? Is that okay? And the answer is as long as it's a situation in halacha we call katsatz. You fix the price, you stipulate what the terms are, and it's not like you have to do it on Shabbos. Like whenever you do it, you do it. And if they do it on their own accord on Shabbos, that's their own choice. We then saw the Ramah throw in there that okay, it's fine if they do it, but if they end up returning it to you on Shabbos, so we saw one opinion was that it would be prohibited to wear it on Shabbos as long as the work was done on Shabbos. So I know if I can ascertain, or they tell me the work was done this morning, let's say, and they return on Shabbos afternoon, so that it's a problem. So we talked about it a little bit, and maybe you even have to wait like a certain amount of time after Shabbos, the amount of time that it would take to have done the malacha after Shabbos was over. That way I'm not benefiting from any work that was done on Shabbos. Even though the work was fine, there was no problem about the idea of me benefiting from the malacha being done on Shabbos is something that is uncomfortable for some of the poskim. And that's why I find this way in here. The Ramah quotes from the Or Zarua, and he says that is the lichatchila minhag. But he says, unless there's a great need, then then there's room to be lenient. Okay. The last thing we saw last week is the imiation. So we're in the middle of the Ramah. It's the third line in my edition. It's again, Reish Nun Beis. Make sure it's also the same line in here. Should be.
Just going back for a minute. Though,
Yes.
Even if
Yeah, it's the third line.
even if you're sure the work wasn't done on Shabbos, they're delivering it, and you know that there's no way they could have gotten to you without driving,
Right.
or their store is like 20 miles away or something, so they're outside.
So they're outside the Eru for sure. It's a problem. Or they're coming outside the Tchum. We talked about it. Let's say there was a delivery made on your front doorstep of something that came. From by the time Shabbos started, it wasn't yet sort of at the warehouse. It wasn't at the local post office overnight. It came from somewhere else, and it arrived at 11 p.m. Now you can't track that because it's already Shabbos. So by the time you can look that information up, but you can bet probably that in a lot of cases, especially if you can track it before Shabbos, where it is. If it's coming from California and you see it hasn't yet it's in transit, but it's not yet checked into the local postal. So there's a problem actually to it's definitely a problem to use that. Could be even a problem to pick it up and put it in the house. Again, we talked a little bit about that, but so I would say yes. If you know that it came from far away, there's a malacha involved carrying, even though it's only derabanan. You should certainly avoid using it on Shabbos. If it's from a local shop or from somewhere local, or with it, then the fact that they drove, I think, is less of a concern, because if they could have gotten it to you a different way, let's say it's a local, if it's kind of from like Queens, okay, it's a problem. But if it's something from here in Westchester, like a dry cleaner, and in theory they could have walked it over to you, right? They would never do such a thing. But they could walk it over to you. It's legitimate to say that they could have taken I take my clothes to the cleaner next to Seasons, the Golden Horseshoe. It's a 12 to 15 minute walk from my house. I don't get them to deliver. I don't know if they even do that, but if in theory they were to deliver, that was their choice. They could have. It was a legitimate option for them to walk. This is why, if, let's say you have someone at home helping you with the dishes on Shabbos, and they pick, and you have their two choices. You have the Shabbos friendly brush, which doesn't require the squeeze of the schita of the sponge, and I have the sponge there. And they choose, the non-Jew chooses on their own to use the sponge because they prefer that. For them, it feels like it's a better experience, easier. Then I don't have to say anything to them. If I only provide them with the sponge, then I have a problem. But if I provide, if the non-Jew legitimately has another option to do something, and they choose to do it the malacha way, then that's on them, right? And it's not on me. So I would say that that's the exception. And probably a lot of the cases that we're talking about here, before there were cars, all these shops that were probably, how far could it have been? Everything was walking distance,
What about the other way around?
Explain.
I bring my dirty suit into the dry cleaner in the room, and I walk it over to the shop. The shop is owned by a guy.
Right.
Can I do that?
I believe not, because there even though it's true, you're not saying do it on Shabbos, you are engaging in a sort of transaction that you're not necessarily paying for it. You are engaging in Mekach Umemkar. We're going to see actually a case in a moment that's going to skate right up against the line here of like what's of this very question about a non-Jew who owns a shoe business and he gives me a pair of shoes, or I go over to his place and I get a pair of shoes that he made. I didn't make it for me. You have to be very careful not to engage in any sort of oh, I'll pay you this for it, I'll pay that. You just say, oh, we'll take care of this later, right? Just like we don't. But when today, I would say when you drop something off, let's say at the cleaners, when you drop a shirt off, right? Sometimes there are signs on posted how much is the item, and even if it's not, there's a standard rate for you drop a suit off. It's this. If you drop, so today you don't have to engage in the haggling of the. I think that there might have been a price that people generally charge, but you probably had to sort of verbally close the deal. That's what I gather from reading things like what we're about to read. But today I think there's like a understanding, like, oh, you drop this off, that's you've engaged me for $8 for that, for the shirt, whatever it is. So I would say it's a problem of Mekach Umemkar. And probably also if you go over to the non-Jew's shop, I wonder if one of these Maris Ayin concerns comes in of that you told them to do it on Shabbos,
The rabbi's going to get you one way or the other.
Yeah.
I knew the answer.
Was no.
I just wanted to hear the answer.
You want to know why?
I wanted to hear the explanation.
Got it. Okay. All right. Okay. So the Mishnah Berurah the Ramah had said it's the third line. The Imyesh Lislos Shenigbar, the Erev Shabbos. If if you can sort of say, oh, you know what, I think they probably finished this before Shabbos started, whatever the item, let's say the dry cleaner, they finished cleaning it before Shabbos, and then they bring it over to you, right? So then, on Shabbos. So that is mutar b'cholim. That's okay, because no malacha was done. They merely carried it over to my house. Again, keeping in mind, can't carry it from outside the eruv, right? And so that's okay. V'dafka im shiger lo ha'eino Yehuda leveso. When is this okay to get it on Shabbos? It's only dafka if the non-Jew comes to your house with the product, right? With the suit, let's say. Aval aser likach kelim beis ha'uman, the Shabbos v'yom. You're not to go over to the beis ha'uman, the place where they do their work, and pick it up from them on Shabbos and Yom Tov. This is what. By the way, this will cut right at your question, by the way. This is even picking up. They're dropping off is worse. Right, so that's what That's what the Mordechai says amongst others, amongst other Rishonim. V'cholza, and we read all the comments of the Mishnah Berurah to that point, so I'm going to keep going. V'cholza b'kelim she'asa liyisrael. And but all this is only when the kelim were made for the Jew, were prepared for the Jew, were clean for the Jew. About Eino Yehuda she'osa min olim al mikach. Is a non-Jew. He's a cobbler. He makes shoes. That's what he does. She's in the shoe business. And he's just making shoes. Whoever comes into my store, I'll sell them the shoes. Jew, non-Jew, I don't care. I want to make business. I want to make money. Mutul Yisrael hamakiro leilech belikach mimenu b'Shabbos ulena olam uvilvad shelo yiktzos imo demei hamekach. This is surprising, and don't worry, the Mishnah will walk this back. So, if the non-Jew, if a Jew goes into a shop, he walks by, Mutal Yisrael HaMakira, this Jew knows him. He's buddies with the guy, with the shoe guy. And he goes over to the shoe guy, and he comes over to his store. Oh, hey, how you doing? I'm going over to my synagogue for services. And I said, oh, okay, nice to see. Oh, those shoes they look awfully beautiful. Oh, yeah, you like them? Here, take them. Go for it. As long as it's okay, as long as, you don't talk about price. Okay, take it. You come back the other day, we'll clear things up. So you're allowed to, according to the Ramah, you're allowed to do this. As long as you don't talk, money, don't start saying, oh, you pay me, not even if you pay today, you pay me on your Sunday, you pay me, $50. No. So long as you don't talk about money, it's actually all good. Very surprising. Take a look at Lamed Gimel, Lamed Dalet. Lamed Gimel, the Mishnah Berurah. He says here, Aval Eino Yehudi she'oseh v'chul. So this non-Jew who does it just to make business. When they do the malacha of making the shoe, they're just doing it for themselves. They want to make money, so they want customers to be able to buy their products. So they have products. So the Issa de Hava Beis HaUman, and what happened to the problem? So there's no problem of wearing it on Shabbos because it wasn't a malacha done on behalf of a Jew. Right? In the dry cleaning case, even though I don't care if you do it on Shabbos or not on Shabbos, if they do the malacha on Shabbos, they did the malacha for the Jew on Shabbos. Right? It was meaning I benefit from it directly, even though they chose when to do it. But here, they were just making shoes. Who walks in the store? They don't know. What happened to the problem that you're not allowed to pick it up from the store? Right? You're going into the store. It looks a little fishy. That the whole prohibition is not relevant here. Why? That's all. Even if he goes himself, not just sends a shaliach, he goes himself into the store. Because everyone knows what's normal in this situation. What's normal? The non-Jew, he makes shoes all the time. He doesn't. It's not like a dry cleaning business where you drop it off and you know whose product it is. It's a shoe salesman. He doesn't know who's going to come into his store that day. He doesn't know when he makes this shoe, it's going to be for a Jew. Everyone knows, not just this person. Everybody knows that's how this business functions. Even though I will acknowledge that sometimes people do custom order shoes or custom order clothing, whatever it is. There's no marasayin here. Some people aren't going to say, oh, he told them to make the shoe. People will assume it, and they see him walking out. They'll say, oh, he went into the store. The guy who makes the shoes didn't make it for him. And they'll say, okay, I guess they'll presume that he didn't talk money with the person. That's the only thing they have to worry that they're worried about. So they'll presume he didn't talk money. Here, I told you that we'll walk it back a little bit. Many of the Achronim don't agree. The Gra, by the way, amongst them, in terms of names of stature, argue with the Ramah. You can't go to him. And then take the shoe. Just like the other cases of any business of a person who's one as an artisan, somebody who's a particular trade. But if they bring it to you, that's okay, right? If they bring it to your house, that's okay. Why? To be stama Lava daita the Yisrael avad. Mistama, the shoe wasn't done for you. In hu'ir sheruba einam Yehuda, as long as the majority of the citizens of the city are not Jewish, then you could assume he had no intention to sell it to a Jew, because al pi rov, non-Jews are the majority customer. Don't ask him what happens if he's in a Jewish neighborhood, whatever. I don't think that they functioned quite in the same way that we do. Of course there was a ghetto and a shtetl, but they didn't have metropolises quite the way we do. Okay. By the way, I would say, it probably depends on the neighborhood then. What's the normal customer? Jew or not Jew? That would matter. Okay, Kamosha Kasa the Simon Tough Kuf Tezvav Ach Yehudi Hu Chen Venisha Ena Uma. This is a big kula, which I've never seen. I'm being honest, I've never seen anybody say that it's okay to do this. So, but I've also never seen anybody say it's not okay not to do it, because they've never seen this at all. If a non-Jew is a chenvedi is a shopkeeper. It's the opposite of an uman. An uman is you make the shoe. You're the distributor. You're the supplier, right? And a chenvedi is not even a wholesaler, right? You're not the one who takes it and sells it to the little stores. You're the little store. So you didn't make the shoe. The shoe was there. The shoe was made months ago. Right? I'm just a Foot Locker, right? I just sell the shoe. I don't make shoes on site. So if a non-Jew owns the Foot Locker, right? Maybe you can be lenient in that case. Again, you can't work out price, which is why today it's probably all snurishkeit. And nobody's gonna say, "Oh yeah, take my shoe." When we're not gonna even talk about how much you're gonna pay me. It's not even relevant. And even there, in that case, where you can walk into the Foot Locker, who apparently will give you the shoes without telling you the price, right? That's okay according to some, but the Tosefes Shabbos and Prima Garden, they're like, I don't like this whole situation. The Have I'll call upon him. Uvda dechol. I told you last time, I have no idea how to define this. Why don't they like it? It feels like it's something you do on the weekdays. Okay, what is this on weekdays? It's because you don't do it on Shabbos normally, but maybe it's uvda dechol. Okay, we talked about last week. There are different definitions of how you talk about this. When they say it's uvda dechol, I accept that it's uvda dechol. When they don't say it's uvda dechol, I accept that it's not uvda dechol. I don't know how to define it.
So, there's no maritime.
What do you say, Tommy?
There's no maritime.
There's according to those who are lenient, apparently not, because you'll know it's a Foot Locker. So nobody makes the shoes at Foot Locker, and the whole problem that exists at Foot Locker is that you have to pay. But if you can work out that you don't have to pay,
You prepaid.
you prepay. Well, then it's yours. Then it would be a situation. Then it's like a shaila. Then it's like the dry cleaning shaila. Can I go pick up my dry cleaning from the dry cleaner on Shabbos? And that depends on how you hold here. If you prepay, it's a great example. If you prepay for your shoes and you can pick them up, right, on Shabbos because it's walking distance from your house, so then it becomes a simple question of can you do the same thing with the dry cleaner? Some people, as you see here, the Rama was very lenient to say that the answer is yes. The answer is yes. He says it's okay. But you see here also there are many achronim who are machmir here on this situation. They don't like this idea that you walk to the store. And even in the second situation where it's not the shoemaker, it's the Foot Locker, the person who sells the shoes, the store that sells the shoes. Even some of the achronim were not comfortable because of an uvda dechol concern that you're engaging. It feels like you're doing business on Shabbos, even though you're not doing business on Shabbos.
They make a big deal about maritime all over the place. And if you walk into the store just to browse, it's a maritime. So I don't understand this.
Right. I guess the idea is that when you sort of legitimately think through the situation, you will assume that they don't do something wrong. I would actually argue that the Foot Locker situation, Bisman Hazeh, even if you prepaid, is a situation that would make sense to say that Marisayin is concerned because they are the normal. Because you see here, what's normal is what factors into Marisayin. It is normal for a person to pay for their shoes the day that they bring them out of the store. It is not the norm to prepay. Though I would admit probably today there is much more prepaying going on in stores particularly with the pandemic, people paid and they would come and pick it up from the store. You get it delivered to your car, or whatever. So I'm not sure what a posek would say, but I would venture to guess that in our situation, there may be a Mari sign concern. John looks really, really puzzled.
Yeah,
I haven't seen this look, by the way, in quite a while. It's been in Florida,
I'm trying to bring it down to a more practical level and trying to understand. So take the much more likely scenario of Sammy's Bagels,
Yes.
right down the block.
Right.
They're making bagels for everybody, right? There's not a specific bagel that they're making for you,
Right.
right? And they have either they have your credit card on file, or you know them behind there, and you come, you're at your, it's 11 o'clock, and your wife calls you, doesn't call you. You come home from Hashkama, and she says,
Bagel.
we're having people. I need bagels.
Right. He's like, why can't I walk over there and just?
Can I walk over? I mean, it seems that they didn't make the bagel for you.
Right.
You didn't call them up for free Shabbos and say, make me bagels, but
Right.
they have the bagels. It's just,
But they make them fresh every morning. That's a bad example. They do.
So there, it's for sure not allowed to be used on Shabbos. To go back to the case where the dry cleaning was done Shabbos morning, you can't use the dry cleaning on Shabbos. Even if they return to you, so even if the Sammy's delivers to you, right? Because you prepaid and you did everything, and by the way, you told them to come on Shabbos. You can't, because first of all, that's actually a problem, because they bake those bagels, stopped it for you. But let's assume your situation where you somehow arrange that they pick it and drop it in, or you go to the store. You can't use it until Bichdei Sheyasu after Shabbos. Though again, this is that Dunkin' Donuts example that I used, where I was once in Highland Park, where I was intern. The psak of the community of the Vad there was, after a Shabbos, you could eat the Dunkin' Donuts Bichdei Sheyasu. I think I told you last week. 5 minutes. They just heat it from a frozen package. So but I remember the rabbi they were talking. It probably doesn't even make sense to wait 1 minute, because at the end of the day, they didn't make the donuts for the Jews. They made the donuts for the customers in the general area, and most people are not Jewish. So the fact that Dunkin' Donuts sells kosher donuts practically probably means you don't have to wait 1 minute. But the fact is that melacha happened on Shabbos, so that's why you can't use it on Shabbos.
Okay, a better example is your wife says, we're having dairy for lunch. We've got a lot of people. I'm out of milk. Can you walk into Sammy's and get the milk?
Right. The milk is right. The milk
Nothing
is
was made on Shabbos. Can you do that?
It's an interesting case. Maybe the answer it could be. It could be because again, if you have a situation where they don't talk to you about money, you have an understanding of. Yeah. So look, maybe the only question I would want to is that at the end of this Mishnah Berurah, I didn't take a look at the Aruch HaShulchan, which I should do, and I'll please God, I'll report back next week if he says something different. But the Mishnah Berurah here says, even in that situation of the milk, right? This is the last case here where they didn't make the milk wasn't produced on Shabbos. Let's say you can work out the money part. At the end of the day, going into their store and taking the thing is an ubza d'chol. Again, I don't know what that means.
Morris comes to say that.
Yeah, right, exactly. So at the end of the day, the Mishnah Berurah blocked all pathways. He blocked all pathways to figure out how to make that work. The last one is confusing because I don't know what it means.
No, it's something that happens it's a customary thing during Chol.
During Chol.
That's what it is. It's just like, it's a normal.
Right.
It's what you do during the Chol.
Right. It doesn't feel Shabbos-tic. Yeah, right, exactly. How, but that depends on the problem. How do you define what's Shabbos-tic, what's not Shabbos-tic? It's really very complicated. But
you're a rabbi.
You
decide.
We decide. That's right. So look, that's the situation here with this. The last thing the Mishnah Berurah writes in this siman, he writes Shelo Yiktzos Imo, that you're not supposed to, as long as you do business, he says, or you make a price, I should say. You just can't mention like what's the number here. $20, 20. Deal of hachi, because if you don't do that, if you buy a product, you tell the non-Jew how much you're going to pay. That's a transaction. Now it's like what you do when you buy on credit, right? You basically tell somebody else to pay it, and I'll pay the credit card company, right? You've made a transaction here, right? Even though you haven't paid it yet. Even though you're not paying right now, that's a transaction. That's a purchase, and that's you've now got he's got an IOU out on you. Okay, let's take a look at Hay for a few minutes while we have time. He writes here in Consideration Base Sif Hay. Now we're moving off of the non-Jew doing things for us, right? The context of this whole simon is that if I don't do the malacha on Shabbos, I can't violate on D'oraisa. So we talked a little bit at the beginning about if you start certain things before Shabbos and then they continue on Shabbos. We diverted a little bit to the situation of the non-Jew because that's a situation where you could start something before Shabbos and the non-Jew finishes something on Shabbos. So now we're sort of back to how we started this whole simon, which is things that you can do before Shabbos that continue into Shabbos. So Sif Heireh says, "Mutar liftoch mayim lagina." You are allowed to open up a stream of water to flow into your garden before Shabbos, of course. V'heim nimshachim v'holchim b'chol haShabbos, and it will water the garden the entirety of Shabbos. Again, you did it before Shabbos. The water flows, and it will continue to do so on Shabbos. It's okay. It's mutar. Ulahaniach kilor. Now we're going to get to really some very practical. This is good. A garden one is actually pretty practical. Anyway, I don't have a garden, but you have a garden. You have a place in Florida. You have your. I know you grow trees, right?
It's all automatic sprinklers.
The sprinklers go on, right?
But I don't set that in motion.
For Shabbos.
I mean, they're just done
They do
for
it.
a year.
Right.
The gardeners do it. It's year round.
Right. They go on.
Yeah.
On their own. Right.
But here too, we have underground sprinklers.
They go on their own. They're on a timer.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
Okay.
allowed.
We're gonna see. Yeah, I believe so. I don't think that there's going to be an issue with that because you set it into motion before Shabbos. Actually, let's take a quick look at the Mishnah Berurah here. Sif katan lamed hay liftoach v'chulei. Hainu sheposeach. That's the bottom line here. Hainu sheposeach mayim samuch l'chashecha. Close to dark on Friday afternoon. You, in our situation, really would turn on the water, right? Let's say you left the water with the hose running the whole time, which is probably also a disastrous flood, but you did this, so it's okay. Close to dark, misvas hamayan, and you put it, near the spring, and you kind of open the pathway. Sheyelech lagina lahashkosa, it'll go into the garden and it will water the garden. That seems to be fine. Actually, here I didn't even look at this. In my edition, the Dirshu edition, they talk about the case that Hindu was talking about. I think what he's describing here is that tzinor is like a.
Sprinkler.
Yeah, I think it's a sprinkler. Is that right, Steve? You're muted. Hold on, you gotta unmute. Steve Kelly, you gotta unmute.
I think Sinor is the pipe. I think a Zarkan is a sprinkler.
Ah, okay, fine. So he says here, fine. So what's a mizagen? You know what a mizagen is?
No.
Is that okay? It's swirling around. It's one of those sprinklers.
Oh, the swirly around sprinklers. Okay, so if you have a sprinkler that's derech the pipe, it's coming in from the you turn on the sprinkler and it's going on the whole Shabbos. So he says here, Rav Nissan Karlitz says here, there's nothing to be worried about here. It's like the case of mime that you turn on you create a path for the water to come in from the spring to your garden, and it's okay. B'mashach chol Shabbos. Yeah, he says here it's fine. The Rishon was on Rosh Hashanah, she'ein kavanah. Okay, yeah. Bottom line, he doesn't talk about that, but the first case he says it's fine here. You have a sprinkler going on. I don't see why it's a problem. It seems like it's fine.
It's like having a light on.
It's on timer, exactly. It's like another thing that's on a timer, like the lights on a time. Yeah, 100%, Michael, exactly. So that if you hold the timers are a problem, then having a sprinkler, Moshe Feinstein probably wasn't fond of the sprinklers on a timer, which you probably didn't know about in those days. I don't know if in the 80s he passed away, they hadn't quite yet the underground sprinkler. It was common, I should say, that the underground sprinkler systems that popped out and they started to, shoot water everywhere. Okay. Nextly, haniach kilor. Kilor is a sam shel refuah shenosmin al ha'ayin. Let's say you have a cream that you have to put on top of your eye, in your eye, near your eye. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe the doctor here, Steve Keller, maybe could describe better what's going on here. But it's a sort of sam. It's a kind of medicine that you're smearing onto your on your eye, and it's over. It's thick. So what's the problem here potentially? Is mimareach. You're not allowed to smooth something out. You take something like a thick cream. Think about like something like Aquaphor. I'm in the parsha of Aquaphor with my children all the time, because of they want to wear diapers. So you have to wear or a triple paste, whatever. You have these very thick, medicinal creams. So it's a problem to actually take it and smear it in a smoothing way, because you're not allowed to smooth out something on Shabbos, like a substance. You're not allowed to smooth out a substance on Shabbos. That's mimareach. Now, that's if it's thick. If it's thin, or we'll call it liquidy, right? So the example of this is liquid hand soap. No one will say it's a problem, because what happens? By the time you're done here, it's gone, right? And then you actually wash it off, it's actually really gone. Right? That's not mimareach. Mimareach is when you have something and you smear it, and now it's a thinner layer of it, like you would do, like again with like a triple paste, it's like a diaper rash cream. So you say, okay, Rabbi Klinger, you don't put on diaper rash cream on your kids on Shabbos if they have a diaper rash. So hold on, I do. There's a way you do it. There's a way to do it. And there's a way not to do it. So he says here, if you're doing the eye medicine and it's thick on the eye, as long as you put it on before Shabbos, but you can't put it on Shabbos, but you could do this cream before Shabbos. That's okay, even though it stays on your eye on Shabbos, and there's a fear that maybe you would do this on Shabbos, but it's okay. We'll live with the fear that you might do something wrong on Shabbos, right? But this is what is allowed. Let's pause here. Look at the Mishnah Berurah. He says haniach kilor, right? That you can leave it on there before Shabbos. Hainu afshen nishar mudach b'Shabbos. Even though you leave it on there on Shabbos, number one, it's going to heal your something that happened to your eye. It's not a problem. What was the potential fear here? Gzeiras refuah. There's a gzeira. You're not allowed to take medicine when it's in certain circumstances. Actually, it's very few circumstances you're not allowed to take medicine. When you're nofel l'mishkav, you're not feeling well at all, you could take medicine. Take your Advil, take your Tylenol, whatever you need. If you're really not functioning in your normal way, like you're not able to do the things you would normally do on Shabbos, then you could take your medicine. If you're not sick, you're just taking something as part of an ongoing regimen all the time. So that's not no one would call that refuah. That's just part of you're not like fixing a situation today. It's ongoing health. So if you take things in a series, let's say you have an antibiotic in a series, that's not just a refuah right now, like that's an ongoing situation. So you're not fixing what's here right now. And anyways, if you're an antibiotic, you might be in a situation of sort of not functioning normally. When can you really not take Tylenol or Advil? When it's like a mechush ba'alma, a small headache. You're like in this in-between state. You're like not you're functioning fine, but you're not feeling perfect. So we'll talk when we get there. There's a whole segment about this, because why? Because of shechika somimonu, because they used to make, what was their medicine made out of? It was made out of plants. It was spices. And what would they do? They would take the spices, they would grind them up on Shabbos. So there was a gezerah not to take any medicine lest you come to grind your spices on Shabbos. So today, even we avoid doing it again in a very. I'm giving away the maskana here is a very narrow situation when you don't. But that's probably what he's responding to here. That even though this is doing refuah, right? It's healing whatever condition you have. It's fine because you did it before Shabbos. And he says here, same reason why you could put a tachboshes, which is an ointment, right? An
No,
ointment.
bandage.
So a bandage, sorry. Some would have been an ointment. Tachboshes, you put a band-aid on your wound. It's certainly before Shabbos, it's fine. Probably on Shabbos, it's fine too, by the way, because if you need to stop the bleeding for obvious reasons, you're allowed to put a bandage on. Okay. Hilor ava, you have a thick ointment, or the thick cream. The kilo rach mitzalo. If you have a runny, watery kind of medicine that you're going to put in your eye, I was thinking like eye drops that you're prescribed by your doctor. So even on Shabbos itself, that's fine to put eye drops in your eyes. Even on Shabbos itself, you could put it there. Or he at least says here, it's mutar lahanicho. It's okay to leave it there, as long as it's shori b'ojom, as long as it's sort of in that state of, I think, very liquidy b'ojom. The reason he doesn't say on Shabbos you can put it in is because again he's working in a world that it's not always mutar to give yourself medicine on Shabbos. But if you're taking ongoing eye drops from your doctor, you should take them on Shabbos too. There's no, I don't think we would say Xeris Refuah is like when it's I want to say it's a one-shot deal. It's not only one-shot deal, but it's not ongoing. When you're doing it all the time, that's not Refuah. That's like maintenance of your health, as opposed to healing yourself. Okay. As you'll say, we'll talk about this Shin Chav Ches. There's a whole simon about medical issues that happen on Shabbos. That's where the topic of can you go to the hospital on Shabbos will come up. How do you go to the hospital on Shabbos? Okay, you talk about a Sif Chaf Aleph there. IHL. Okay, the one thing I wanted to share with you was, where is this? Oh no, sorry, it's the next. Look at the next. Sorry, one more comment on the Mishnah. We're very short. It's usher to even if it's normally usher to leave it on, to place it on Shabbos, either cream in your eye, shema yimarech, because what happens? You might smear it, right? So in my Dirshu edition, this will end. He writes here. This is when you're talking about it was already smeared on the kilor was already the medicine was already smeared on the bandage, but then you put, let's say, on your eye or something like that. Okay. Let's say, what about you have a wound on Shabbos? You want to put Neosporin, right? It's hurting, you want to put something to heal it, even though the Neosporin kills when you put it on, but okay. And you say, I'm not gonna smear it. I'll squeeze it right onto the wound. So the Shevis Halevi says, Shemuter afilu b'Shabbos atzma. He says that's okay even on Shabbos itself. B'mokom choli, if a person is really in pain or they're sick, v'tzorich gadol, and there's a great need. So this is, to me, by the way, it would be criminal if you didn't put on your child the proper. So let's say your child, it happens. I'm a good parent, I think. Maybe I'm not, but I think I am. Even the good parents have their child gets a diaper rash sometimes. I don't have to tell you when. You know when they get diaper rashes, right? They're very active bowel movements, and they're going and going. It's whatever, something's wrong with their stomach. Oftentimes it happens. So on Shabbos, it hurts, by the way. You do a diaper change and you're wiping it. They're in pain. So what do I? This is what I do. If I have great memory, what I'll do is I'll take I'll purchase, dafka, one of the tubes, and I will just, squeeze it onto that area, and I'll be very generous because you can't get it perfectly. And then I was asking my Rebbe about this. My leader said, if it smears itself, it smears itself. Okay, but you should put on the ointment. You should put on the cream. They're in pain just because they can't express it with words. Doesn't mean they don't feel the pain. You should put on the cream. And if you don't have the squeezy tube, you should still put it on. What you should do is you should take a thing on your finger and you should just sort of dab it onto the spot and pull off and dab it onto the spot. That way you're not smearing the cream. To take it and to smear is a problem. Let the baby, with its natural movements, smear it itself on the spot. But you should just go nuts. Dab as much as you can in the area, and again, if you want to be, I try to do this. I try to remember always have a tube. Buy a tube. It costs a little more than the tub one, but it's worth it, and it's easier also to put on when you're not able to really smear it all over the place. So I just wanted to point that out. Halacha l'maisa in terms of childcare, and if you have your own, forget childcare by the way. If you have your own skin condition that you need to take care of on Shabbos, right? To smear it where is not. If nothing is left when you smear like it's one of those very thin creams, or you just go like this and it's gone, that's going to be okay anyways. But if it's a thick cream, right, you can put it on. Maybe a way to do this is to put it onto a bandage and then bandage it on top of it and then just leave it. So just things to think about in terms of how we use creams and take care of certain skin conditions that are occurring on Shabbos. I will pause here. We'll talk about next time all sorts of other situations here where the malacha. We'll talk about actually juice. It'll be an interesting one. Can you crush this situation? Let's say grapes, and the grape juice is coming out, and you think of a thing that's catching it. And before Shabbos, you put it there, and it continues to drip and drip and drip on Shabbos. Can I then take the grape juice and drink it on Shabbos? You could probably ask the same situation about other fruits as well. Whether you can take the freshly squeezed juice on Shabbos. And this will lead us to interesting discussion about hashmas kol. What happens if you have a mill that is running over Shabbos, that is grinding up the wheat kernels? I set it into motion before Shabbos. So one of the problems that is raised is that it makes too much noise on Shabbos. Even though I'm not doing the malacha on Shabbos, it makes too much noise. And things that make too much noise on Shabbos are problematic on Shabbos. That is a very difficult category to define because what's noisy to you and to me might be different to somebody else. So we'll have to try our best to figure that out. We'll talk about this like an alarm clock. We'll talk about alarm clocks and things like that on Shabbos. Always a pleasure to learn with everybody. I hope you have a great day. We'll be on for next week. Just giving you a heads up, Chol Hamoed Pesach, there are going to be no shiurim over Chol Hamoed Pesach. You're here, probably busy, right? So Chol Hamoed, just give you.
Gonna be a problem too,
Yeah, so Chol Hamoed will take a break, but other than that, I'm here. I have no plans of going away. My wife is expecting, in June, so no vacations anytime between now and then. So except for Pesach week, we'll be on. Thank you, everybody.